Welcome then, everyone. This is Safe Movies, and this is episode 5, the Picard episode. We have assembled with us today a Imperial Senate's worth of hardcore Trekkies, and we are going to give the recently concluded Star Trek Picard series a good once over. But I am, as always, your boy, Dave DeMoss. I'm joined by my friends, Rachel. Say hi, Rach.
Hey.
And Kevin.
What's going on?
And so, question one then. What did you all think of Picard? What did you think? Series as a whole.
I was glad to see Patrick Stewart back because everybody loves Patrick Stewart. Um,
He is indeed the man. Yes.
he's the man. I was glad to get some Star Trek that took place finally after Next Generation DS9.
The
Because I'm
events
so
of Nemesis, let us say.
Actually, post Voyager, because we haven't
Yes.
had anything post Voyager.
post all the '90s series, post the movies, the Next Generation movies, I should specify. Yeah, I was really glad about that when I heard it. When I heard it that it was gonna be a thing, I was like, great, because I'm just not into just keep going back to the old series and trying to, you know, I want them to go forward. There's such a big sandbox to play with that why do we got to keep going back to the old series? I guess I get nostalgia is hot right now, but so that was a plus. I'll give that's a big plus. However, the way that they handled it uh left a little to be desired. There was just some little details here and there that just seemed like they weren't fleshed out enough, and I think yeah, it really added up to my disappointment with especially the finale, but the series in whole. And there's some things that you guys pointed out, such as the sudden existence of cash in this universe, which is like it's like seems like a number one no. This is something that we've known for Star Trek forever. It's like a cashless society.
And see, that deeply confused me because I was so used to in Discovery. Because I always try to compare this to the Discovery series because they're the same people made them. In Discovery, when there were little things like that where you were like, what the hell? Like the holograms, when they did, when they were initially talking by holograms, they eventually get around to explaining it. So I kept thinking that's something to do with maybe the disappearance of synths, like maybe synths were part of what was keeping like the cashless society thing going, like that they were going to tie it in somehow, but they never did. And it really bothered me. It really bothered me.
And I don't want to be that guy, but it seems like they had to create this character through Raffi to contrast Picard living on this pimped out chateau with his wine, and they had to, put that in there like, "Hey, I'm living in a trailer, Picard," like, and you cost me my job, and it was just like it didn't track, and yeah, they don't try to explain that at all. Like, why is there suddenly cash? Why is everybody vaping and smoking now in this universe? Like, what? Uh, they're trying to keep it edgy. I get it, and they want it to be
No
relevant
network
to
standards and practices bearing down anybody's neck anymore.
yeah, and they want to keep it so it seems like there's some you know connections to our current day and political climate and stuff. I get that. Uh,
Yeah, and to be fair,
to be
um
fair,
the Star Trek universe did accept that there was currency that was between planets, right? But like even in DS9, like Jake Sisko has this moment where he's he's trying to buy a baseball card for his dad, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't remember all the specifics about this, but Jake's trying to buy a baseball card for his dad, and he has to get Nog on
Yes,
it. Yeah, Nog.
Rest in peace, Nog. Rest in peace.
Yeah,
indeed.
have to get him in on it, um, because he doesn't have any money, and he's like, our reputation becomes currency, kind of thing. It's our achievements and all this stuff. So they recognize there's like gold press latinum that they use to trade between um the Federation, but we've come to understand that Earth itself does not have currency, does not have cash. And not only do they bring it up with the economic disparity between like Raffi and Picard, like you said, the living situation, and how I guess we're supposed to assume that that happened because of salary that Starfleet gave her, but there's this whole conversation that Picard has in TNG um when those people that were from the past, they found them and like fixed. Do you
The
remember that?
frozen people, yes.
Right, right. And like somebody asks him something like, "Oh, oh, how much did this ship cost? Like, how much do you make?" And he's like, "No, no, no. Like Starfleet doesn't pay me." Um, but yeah, there's that, and then like an episode or two later, they make a comment about like having cash, literally the word cash, to bribe somebody, and I was like, "What is going on?" Like I could kind of like overlook the Raffi thing, but then when they said that, I was like, "Why would he use the word cash and not like latinum
Yeah,
or
isn't Rios
strips?"
like he's doing this for pay? They establish, the Han
Right.
Solo type guy. Like he's like, I'm doing this for the money, I'm not doing this because I have
Yeah.
any loyalty or allegiance. It's for the
It's
money,
not, yeah, it's not something that they just mention once in Picard, like, they mention it a lot, and, like, it's we've heard multiple times in other parts of Star Trek that cash does not exist, so, like, not explaining that just felt, very unsatisfying.
Money doesn't exist in the 24th century.
No money. You mean you don't get paid?
The acquisition of wealth is no longer the driving force in our lives. We work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity.
the whole thing about the refugee situation and how the Romulans were unable to rescue their own people. I mean, this is an empire that's been established since the original series,
Correct.
and
Yep.
it's like they forgot that you can literally Google up, the star map of the Romulan Empire. It's not just a planet, guys. It's an entire star map of different planets. I mean, in Nemesis, they got, they established there's the Remans or whatever, and uh this is a huge society. It's a huge military force. Suddenly, they're not able to rescue their own people, and it even doesn't make sense when Picard's getting interviewed in the first episode by the quote unquote Fox News or whatever lady, and they're like, he's like, there was thousands, or maybe it says millions. There was millions of refugees that we had to try to to rescue, and I'm thinking, only millions? Like, you've got multiple
Right.
planets. Like, what? There should be billions, right? Like, one little things like that. We're just like, is this just? Did you guys not have a rewrite, or did we just go with the first draft? Like, what's going on here? Uh, yeah, stuff like that. And then it's especially made that whole entire conversation is made moot by the end episode when Commodore O and the rest of the Romulans show up with like 218 ships, or something, or maybe even more than that. They got a huge fleet. Where the fuck were these guys? Like literally in your own show. Like you're not remembering between episodes that like there was suddenly they're able to come up with this fleet.
Another big part of the Romulans that I felt was deeply unsatisfying was their cult, where they stand around uh that
Yeah,
alien artifact to get the
The
vision.
the Ring of Doom, yes.
Right. Like
the
they're all
witches.
huh?
They're like witches. They're like
Yeah.
Romulan witches. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the witches standing around this thing to get the vision, and they're like clawing at their face and stuff. They don't explain why they're all women. They don't explain why some people can take it and some people like don't survive apparently. Um and they don't really explain like how the admiral goes from being like you get the impression that like because she was privy to this vision, that's why she sought the position that she did within the Federation. But like, how the hell did she actually get there? And then how is she like suddenly back in charge of all of these ships? I thought they were a secret cult, right? Like that
Yeah,
whole thing was very like fuzzy.
yeah, it does, and she looks like the exact same Amy. Flashback to the little that scene where the witches are standing around and they're seeing the vision of the future, and yeah, and then when she's in her capacity at Starfleet, she doesn't look that much older. Of course, Vulcans they age like they live to what be 200 300 years old. So I guess that can be easily explained away. But yeah, how'd
Yeah,
she get
210, 220, something like that. Yeah.
something like that? How about yeah? How did she get back in head of the fleet without anybody from Starfleet being like, "What's going on here?" Is Starfleet this incompetent at this point? They really went out of their way to make Starfleet like they're xenophobic,
Yeah.
they're isolationists, which I don't know how that works anyway. When you've got a empire of thousands of planets, like did they all just go, "Yeah, we're xenophobic now"? Like all of them just agreed to that. There was no sort of discussion. They're like, "Well, we
Well,
got attacked by the
at least
synths."
towards Romulans and artificial life forms. Yes.
Yeah, it just seemed very odd that Starfleet was able to so easily compromise their morals, like over a single attack by synths. They've had multiple attacks by the Borg, by all sorts of people, and suddenly this is what it took. Your robot slaves like suddenly turn on you. Now you're like, nope, now we don't trust anybody. It just seemed really weak and not very well fleshed out. But this is uh maybe it's just indicative of the current you know, uh, ever since J.J. Abrams, it seems like they're all about, it's an overused term now, but it's true. It's all about the mystery boxes, and they're all about these cool ideas, but they don't gel at the end.
Yeah, nor do they pan out very often. And when they do, it's always strangely somewhat kind of disappointing. Like you can see where an idea could have gone had they, had some kind of follow through to it. But following through would be to open up the mystery box and find out whose head is inside, right?
Yeah,
And we can't
like
do that.
how they killed Hugh. That seemed like such a missed
Those
opportunity.
bastards.
That yeah, I was like, I was really interested in him and like where his story was gonna go over the seasons and like, and no, he just right away.
They killed Icheb, those bastards. They totally
I was
um
really disappointed about that too.
yep, they totally fridge stuffed him, the bastards. Yep.
So some people were saying that the original actor who played Icheb is a huge asshole on Twitter and stuff, and he said a bunch of fucked up shit. So they recast him for this and killed him off. So some people were saying that it was kind of a fuck you to the original actor because I guess he's a huge douchebag. I don't know enough about that to say either way, but some people were saying, oh, they didn't want to give that guy like, you know, any more screen time than they had to, so they just replaced the actor and then killed him off. But yeah, there's
But if
all
you're
sorts
gonna
of
replace the actor anyway, that means you could give him 0 screen time and
yeah. Why not
still
just actually kill the douchebag actor off and then be like, here's your $100. Like, get the fuck out of Star Trek. But yeah, there's all sorts of missed opportunities like that, and that whole ex Borg reclamation project panned out to exactly nothing. And that was my biggest complaint about how they killed off Hugh was if the Borg, the artifact, that it looked great. It looked, I mean, for the first episode cliffhanger, that was great. You see the Borg ship, and you're like, oh damn, it's on, and then they get Hugh back. That was super cool. And he goes out like a bitch. And by the end of the series, I'm not even sure what the fuck any of that had to do with anything. It just seemed like they just were like, "Hey, we got the Borg back."
and we got Jerry Ryan back, which is probably the source of all of this in the first place.
I'm actually hoping that some of this stuff does get resolved in season 2, like especially the Borg. Like there has to be a relationship between the okay, let's face it. Like, the Reapers. That's what they are. These like higher synth life forms. Like this is definitely a love note with Mass Effect here, but those are the Reapers. And so there's got to be a relationship between like the Borg, the synthetics, and the Reapers, because that is the only reason that any of that makes sense. And my sort of theory here is that Picard was Locutus a Borg, right? So he's been a Borg, and they revisit that a lot in this storyline. And now he's become a synth, and there's these, synthetic, and he's been just a human, right? And there's these Reapers that now are aware of the existence of this. We assume that they're in like another dimension. So they're
Or
aware
in
of this
the
dimension.
cold vastness of interstellar space, like the last pack of Reapers.
Right. So who better? Like, I can see this going one of two ways. Either like a diplomatic thing where like Jean-Luc Picard is the only person who could possibly try to make peace with the Reapers, or he's going to be the only one who can unite all the forces to fight them. Right? Which
And
is
we go full Mass Effect.
we go full Mass Effect. I think they're going all in on the Mass Effect. That is where my poker chips lie right now.
Well, I thought they would have gone that route too, but I feel like they could have just touched on that at least in this first run of the series. But because it seems like by the end of the last episode, there's even just this throwaway line where they're like, "Yeah, the synth ban is reversed. Like it's all good now." Uh, and it seems like what? Like there's literally this malevolent machine race that's just on the other side of this portal, which can be easily opened at any time, probably by the machine race themselves because they're so advanced. Why are they just waiting for the synths to open the portal? Now that they know where they can find them and that they can open it, couldn't the synths just easily open that back up and shit's back on? Why would the Federation be like, yeah, you think they would double down? They'd be like, no, like there literally is this threat. Okay, now we know there's this threat. Fuck synths. Like, no, it's just like literally a throwaway line. Like, nope, it's all good now. Like, really? You saw those evil tentacles coming through that shit. Like, something's out there. Like, it's all good now.
Speaking,
That's it.
I do
That's
want to say, speaking of tentacles, there is one thing that has become perfectly clear to me after watching both Discovery and Picard, is that somebody up on that crew is super into tentacle hentai porn.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
in
Yep.
both
All the way. Yeah.
in the like tentacle alien thing that comes out and like attacks the shuttle in Discovery, to
Mhm.
like uh that scene where 709 gets plugged in and she becomes like the Borg queen. Like that was like that was super
I'm actually, yes, I can go either way on whether anyone involved in this has ever touched a Mass Effect game or indeed any sci-fi role-playing game
Oh, I
at all.
guarantee they have. It's so clearly just from what you guys have told me about the game. I've heard about the series. I haven't played it myself, but just from what you guys have told me and from the comments online, everybody's noticing that parallel that they're like, it's just a straight up rip of Mass
Eh,
Effect.
it
And
could be, but it could, you see, that could be confirmation bias talking.
well, you're totally right. But the only thing that makes me think it's not is that there's actually an ongoing lawsuit with the Star Trek Discovery creators. They straight up cribbed this indie game developer's ideas for Star Trek Discovery. So it's
Oh,
almost
that's
like they,
right. Oh
and it's
God, I'd forgotten about that lawsuit. Thank you very
it
much.
it is bizarrely, it's too close for comfort to the point where you think, oh, they actually did steal some of this guy's ideas. Not like a carry either way, but if you're just an independent creator trying to make a game, but literally the plot from Discovery was almost taken directly from this guy's game. They have a tardigrade,
Yep.
a giant tardigrade.
And they use it
They
to
got
move through space and time. Yeah.
yeah, they got a black. The female lead is a black lady. They got a gay couple. They got a redhead like Tilly. They got a
yes, Latilly.
Who's a spaz? Yeah.
yes. One of those things might be a coincidence. 4 or 5 of those things, starts looking a little bit like plagiarism.
Yeah, 3 times his enemy action. Yeah.
So that's why I feel like we could give Picard a pass on looking like Mass Effect a little too much if that hadn't been the case. But when it is 2 shows in a row now, you're like, guys, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Same crew, same people too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my opinion of it is I really wanted to like this a lot because I do actually really like Discovery. But it felt very much like Mass Effect, which I'm not opposed to. I'm definitely not opposed to that storyline. I think it's fascinating. But it was like there's a lot of things that were left uh that bothered me, and I'm hoping they're going to address it in season 2. Um I might have a little too much faith there, but um the other thing that I really felt about it was I felt like they brought back Data only to kill him slowly in front of us. Like that was so unnecessary. I mean, Data is my favorite character. I love him so much. And to like give us hope that you talk about something where like you felt like that was like not explained well, right? You were talking about that was a huge thing. Like they have him enough of him on some memory disk that they're able to have Picard's consciousness interact with him. But even though they're able to put a human consciousness into a synth body, they can't put a synth consciousness that they have just like sitting around inside like an old Nintendo, it looked like.
It made no sense. Yeah,
You
somebody
know,
was
with
saying
the
it looked like
cartridges.
a yeah, it looked like a dehumidifier or something. He's just sitting
Right.
there on the counter, and apparently he's been sitting there during the entire 10 episodes of this series.
Just
ho
chilling.
what a missed opportunity. You've literally got a golem that you can put Picard's consciousness into, which creates all sorts of other issues philosophically for me about why would you put a guy that has so much resentment from being assimilated, but you're not even gonna get his consent by shoving him into a synth body. That just seems very problematic, but
Right? He's gonna definitely be traumatized.
you had Soong's priorly unknown son, which is something don't even get me started on. I hate how they're doing this lately. Here, let's shoehorn a
A relative.
Yep. Love our surprise relatives in modern Star Trek. They are just coming out of the woodwork.
and of course, it's not without precedent. I mean, they did it in Star Trek 5 with Spock's unknown brother Cybok, which
Cybok. Yes.
luckily everybody's forgot about that because Star Trek 5 is a terrible movie. I do find
Yeah.
it interesting that in um Discovery season 2, when they have all those flashbacks to Spock and Burnham when they're kids, where the fuck is Cybok? Where the
Yeah.
fuck is he? Where the fuck is he?
The in that case, like Romulan Eric Bana going back in time and killing James T. Kirk's dad, somehow uh changed the timeline to make sure that Sarek pulled out that time.
Was his brother supposed to be older or younger?
He was supposed to be older.
Yeah, so
Um
maybe he was away. Maybe he was away at school. Maybe Spock couldn't stay at a boarding school because
He
he's,
was supposed to be sort of a rebel, so maybe he was out doing rebellious Vulcan kid shit. Whatever that entails.
feeling. Well,
Yeah.
he was listening to music and feeling something.
Um yeah, but this whole thing with Data, um like you said, how are they gonna bring him back? You're gonna get Brent Spiner back, which uh they he'd said years ago he didn't want to play Data again, but they were able to lure him in somehow, I guess, with this amazing script that he thought it
right.
was.
No, it's definitely the money.
More than likely, the promise of being able to act on camera without the makeup as his own, yes, recently discovered, human fleshy brother.
Sure, there might be that, but to bring him back and then in the last episode give us all these details to let us know that, oh, hey, actually, he didn't have to just be sitting around in his little mind palace fucking existence. He could have actually been put into a body and we could have been interacting with him. Why wouldn't you do that? Especially when you've got, Picard and you've got Data's daughters now. why wouldn't they want to meet their the person that they're cloned from? Like, he's literally on the same planet with you. He's right there. He's on the counter in the toaster.
Yeah, like, I would have thought that all of because they all seemed like, well, like, Daj and,
Soji.
Soji both seemed like they had, like, really no concept of him, and I'm like, they wouldn't have, like, they have, synthetic consciousness. They should have been able to visit him just the same way that they were able to transfer Picard's consciousness into that framework in order to visit him. Like, why wouldn't they have gotten advice from him?
Could have theoretically been even easier for them to just jack into his personal matrix, as opposed to
Right.
a nice
Yeah, the whole
machine.
thing seems half baked.
It
And
was
why
all
wouldn't
because they were sadists and they wanted me to watch him die slowly again. I mean, like,
Yes,
in a
because
really
that's what you
slow,
call
dramatic way.
emotion. Yes, that's what you call emotional resonance. That's you want your audience to feel feeling, and the best way to do that is to have someone die. Though following that logic to its ultimate conclusion can, are often enough, lead to many horrific things. Cough into darkness. Cough.
cough, cough? There's nothing more emotionally resonant to watch on screen than seeing Patrick Stewart pull out 3 USB drives and very slowly to kill Data.
They look like to me, they look like cartridges from a video game. Like,
The old save cartridges that you
yeah,
used to have.
yeah, exactly. Like, I thought he was gonna take the end on it and like blow in it, you know?
For the first, yeah, for the first Xbox and the PlayStation, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and to me, this, I'm actually heartened to hear all of you say this, because a lot of this echoes a lot of my thinking on it. But as with all new Star Treks, I judge everything from the nadir that was 2014, and um, by that metric of Picard on a whole, yeah, it's all right, but it is still in its all rightness. Like, it is still a effort from the current regime, and as such is fatally flawed, with a lot of their fatally flawed storytelling techniques and tropes and just little ticks that I've noticed over the years. Like,
So wait, is it that you find it fatally flawed? Because the two, no, probably the three things that I think people say about Discovery and Picard that make it quote not Star Trek like, and maybe this is what you're talking about, but they say they're no longer episodic, that they're meant to be binge watched.
wrong, bullshit.
It's um more like Game of Thrones where no character is safe, so you don't have like just the red shirts.
Foolish, empty
And
words. Keep it
I
and
don't know. They did put the incest twins in this one just to get that Game of Thrones kind of feel for sure.
that's true. That was
Which
weird.
again added nothing. Added nothing.
Yeah.
Went nowhere. Yeah.
That was so weird. That was so weird between them. And then
Well, you had to have two villains, right? So you could redeem the one and have Jerry Ryan throw the other off a cliff into a bottomless pit, Star Wars style.
Right, and
uh,
then forget about the hipster Rymulan boy totally at the end. Like, what the fuck happened to him in the last episode? Does anyone know? He
Like
just
many,
disappears.
like many hipster douchebag, yes, he slinks away into the night.
Yeah.
well, and the third complaint folks have about it is that it's no longer a techno utopia. So is that what you're talking about?
No, that again, nonsense, hearsay. People should shut the fuck up. What I'm actually talking about is things like, Utopia Planatia was an inside job, sheeple. Taking the entirely justified uh, suspicion of the one benevolent one party state that is the United Federation of Planets that DS9 introduced, and just running with it to a degree that is meant to be reflective of our current 21st century, rather than being an outgrowth of the 24th century that we'd already been dealing with. Um, things like That's what I'm talking about. But even with all of that, it is the official position of this podcast that anybody wandering around saying that this or that is not Star Trek or not whatever insert franchise here should grow the fuck up. Don't deal with it the way those dead people do, as a modern philosopher would say, because you don't get to decide what Star Trek is. Paramount Pictures gets to decide what Star Trek is, and they have unfortunately handed it over to like the person who co-wrote the first 3 Transformers movies and the person who co-wrote Joel Schumacher's Batman movies. Uh,
Oh God. Oh God.
and yeah, and we're all dealing with it. But, some of us have the reproductive organs to like turn and face it and actually, work the damn problem as opposed to just shutting everything down, being like, "Nope, not Star Trek." Meh.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's an issue with a lot of fan bases right now is that people say, this is the no true Scotsman argument.
Indeed. And of course, to its logical conclusion, like, no, there is no true Scotsman. There are no true Scotsmen anywhere. And that, and we start to sound like some of my, say, action movie fans who just stopped at Wrath of Khan, which, used to be able to make the argument that, oh no, you can't just stop there. There's this whole wide, wonderful universe full of stories and people and characters and such. But then they made Nemesis, which was, let's be honest, a soft remake of Wrath Khan.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it
uh
was. Yeah,
and then they not, just 12 years later, they turn around and what do? You just remake Wrath of Khan while lying through your teeth to people, swearing you weren't just going to remake Wrath Khan, and then do it but shittier. And as a 9/11 metaphor, which no, okay. I mean, but it's A, little late, and B, really sloppy because you the the big thing is like the tension at the heart of all these new Star Treks, I think, is a instinctual push pull because you're right, Kev. Nostalgia does sell, but I'm starting to wonder whether or not that's because it's the only thing being offered up for sale. So on the one hand, you have people trying to tell new stories and trying to push Star Trek forward, and on the other hand, you got people who seem to have much more influence, being like, "Nope, pull it back. We got to reference this thing because that's what passes for fan service, as opposed to telling new Star Trek stories, which I would, as a fan, would feel very serviced by." And
yeah,
did
fresh new ideas. What?
Yeah,
Never.
and did in fact feel very serviced at certain points during both Picard and the 2 seasons of Discovery that we have. But they were always bracketed, always leavened with um stuff that I've unfortunately come to expect from this new from the B timeline, I shall say, the Kelvin timeline.
Well, this isn't
That's
supposed to take place in the Kelvin timeline. This is to take place in is this the?
uh-huh. Uh-huh. You don't know, do you? And that right there, that's another thing we can add to the
Well, I
pile.
mean, well, I mean, we know that it takes place in the same timeline as the Next Generation timeline, so it's not from the J.J. Abrams timeline. But of course, that
Then why are
event.
there lens flares all over the damn place? Why is the lighting so austere and just like focused on people's faces, and why are all the bulkheads like even on the Federation ships? Like they were trending towards that kind of with the Enterprise E, but why is everything gunmetal now instead of that nice even TV beige,
But
right?
that's a stylistic thing. That's not like a storyline thing.
You're right. That's entirely aesthetic. I mean, the thing that fries my noodle is like, okay, because time travel happened. So we've I imagine it would be more like everybody who isn't the main characters in Back to the Future, where everything just changed around them. Because we're meant to believe that everything otherwise happened exactly the same way, like down to the letter, the Picard maneuver. He still invented the Picard maneuver when he was a kid.
Yeah, no,
Um,
it's the original timeline. It's not the offshoot timeline. The only
Yeah,
event
exactly.
the only event that's the same in both universes is the planet going supernova or the sun going supernova. That was the divergent event where the other universe shot off and created the JJ movies. So this is still the original timeline. Uh, but like you said, they did this in Discovery too, and I've seen this. People saying this is the look and some of the ideal of the universe kind of seems like it's from the JJ timeline. Uh, but I mean I get it. They're gonna try to stay modern. We're not, it's like when they redid the ship, the Enterprise bridge, and the Enterprise and
mhm.
Discovery. I get it. We're not gonna make it look like the '60s set. That it wouldn't fit. I actually really liked how the Enterprise looked. Well, especially the bridge.
Yeah, pretty good.
Uh,
Yeah,
I thought it looked great with the red and the orange. It looked like the Discovery's bridge, but it still had that original series flavor. I thought that was great. Because you're not gonna, there's always people that are gonna be like, it should look like the '60s show. It's like it's not gonna look good in HD. We got fucking rocker switches and fucking ticker tape and shit. Like it's not gonna look good, guys. Like we gotta kind of update it a little bit. That's fine. But yeah, lens flares, shit like that. They might have went a little overboard. But I will say that is one of the things I like about both these shows. I love the space battles and shit and
same.
Discovery. I think it looked great. And all the space shit in here looks great. I mean,
Yep, not gonna
like we
lie.
said, before, we're spoiled. Like this shit, it looks great. The one complaint I will say is that I wish when they brought back the fleet, when Riker's commanding the fleet in the last episode, is I wish they had a little more diversity in the ships because they just had this new, uh, s- you know, Starfleet ship design, and it
Yeah,
just
looks kinda monoform, a bit like, yeah,
yeah,
everybody else,
you
and
got all this money and all these creators and all these. I mean, there's people that be
Copy
willing to.
paste, copy paste, copy paste.
yep,
Yeah, there would be people. There's people that make, uh, you know, 3D, Star Trek ships just for fucking fun that look fucking great. They could have got any of these people to do it for free and had a whole ship. I mean, a whole fleet full of some next gen era ships. Because if you have this uh this huge fucking space fleet, you're gonna be using some old ships. It was like the scenes in that one of the greatest scenes in DS9. When the huge
yep.
fleet comes in. And yeah, you get to see all those different eras and shit. That's just great. I don't know why they were just you got all that money. Why wouldn't you just put in a couple of those? Give it that would have been some fan service out. Like give us one of those old Enterprise D looking ships, Like I want to see
Nice.
some more of
Yeah,
that shit. Yeah.
at this point in the timeline, the Galaxy class starship would be about as old as like the Reliance were back in the original series movies, or like the fucking yeah, not quite as old as the Excelsior class, but getting there.
Yeah, yeah.
Like getting
But
along in years.
especially after you've established that your shipyard was destroyed and it's still on fire, of course you would be using older ships. Like that was a perfect it's little shit like that again. Like it's almost like they forgot their own the last script they wrote. It's like the shipyards are burning. Of course you're going to be using some older technology for your space fleet, but nope, they all look the same.
Nope,
Mm.
we contracted that special effects shot 6 months ago, and by God, we gotta get it out for the premiere date, which is, was fixed 2 years ago, and yeah, we certainly can't send it back now.
And
We
that was
couldn't.
something that I liked is even if it didn't make a lot of sense, like why the fuck would Riker be in heading up the fleet? It should have been that chick that kept telling Picard to go fuck himself. She should have been the one leading the fleet because she's the one who's obviously like the admiral right now or something. But I like that, even though I mean it's totally fan service, but that was good scene getting Riker back and
I
coming
like Riker and Troy's fucking house, honestly. I mean, that's what I want. I want that pizza oven.
pizza oven. Yeah, no, that was actually one of my favorite episodes because it felt like I just needed. I'm glad they didn't lean too heavily on.
Okay,
uh
evidence too that these people are sadists. They gave them two kids just so they could kill one of them.
And it
in
was a
like
s-
the
and it was
most
a
convoluted
synth-related disease.
right, right, in the most convoluted way. Like they gave them two children so that they could take one for a
Yep.
plot point that ultimately didn't matter. Because we were like supposed to like maybe believe that Riker and Troy had more of a personal stake in this,
Yep.
and that's why he would have shown up. But we
Pathos.
all know we didn't need to kill his kid. You could have just let him not like we didn't need that to be like a synth related disease to believe
Yeah,
that he would have been supportive of synths because he knew Data and of Picard. Like that oh
yeah.
man.
Knows him
These characters
no
have history, guys, but
yeah,
they're
knows him so well that he can figure out the whole plot of the show just from one conversation with
they
Soji. Yeah.
they shoehorn shit like that in there for people that they're expecting hadn't watched the original series, which is hilarious because I don't see how anybody that hasn't seen the original series would just sit down and watch Picard. But they're hoping that they can capture that little sliver of audience, which is like
Maybe
two people.
really young X-Men fans, I guess.
Something, yeah. But yeah, they could have dispensed with that. There's a whole lot of those things where they could just dispensed with the plot point, and it would have been just the same or even stronger. We don't need this extra. Like, what the fuck is a silicon related disease anyway? Like, what? What does that mean? What?
I'll bet you anything that just had tech written on it in the script.
There's like we don't know, but it's got to relate back to the main, crux of the plot somehow.
Yeah, it does, and that's another one of those things. Like that's another one of those ticks that I've observed, over the years. Like it, I hate to keep going back to it, but this was a traumatic event in my life, so I keep revisiting it. In Star Trek Into Darkness, right? You can't just do like um you can't just do 9/11 but in the future. You also got to do Khan Noonien Singh, and it's never enough to do just the one thing or the other. You have to do them both and then wrap them all into a massive overplot if you're doing a series that you may or may not resolve even in the season. Because it's got to be an ongoing series, and it was obviously an ongoing one before it was soon after it was greenlit. There is no way, shape, or form that they didn't know that they were going to get renewed before they started all of this. Because if they had been, I think they might have been a little tighter with everything they've done. Um, but yes, this on the whole struck me as that first season of any show nowadays where we gotta get the crew together, or the obligatory 20 minutes an origin story where somebody's just normal before they get their superpowers.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I agree. But it's two things I wanted to point out before we wrapped it up, if that's okay. Um, Patrick Stewart, love Patrick Stewart. I love that they brought back Data, even though it was kind of a giving us blue balls. Um, I like that end scene with Data and Picard, even though it felt kind of like, why did you even bring him back? But I still thought that was really touching, and I think that is a strength of when the show did its best is when it was focused on the next generation characters. The best parts were Riker and Troy and Picard and Data. All our favorites. The rest of them didn't have a lot of love for. There's just 10 episodes I couldn't really find any love for these other characters. I kind of liked the Han Solo light guy. He's an okay character, but the rest of them, whatever. Uh, yeah, the best parts were the next generation crew, and that's why it's so bittersweet that they got rid of Data again. Because I'm like, dude, this was such a great scene with him in his little fucking
And
suit
he's
dying at
still
the
killing
end.
it.
And
Damn it. Brett Spiner still killing it. He shows
yeah,
up to work.
that was great. Like I said again, the Riker scene with him showing up, that was great. But the biggest problem for me was the just serious lack. It seems like there was a lot of room for these big philosophical questions. Um, Especially you're gonna bring back Seven of Nine to have a scene with Picard, and for them to have a little conversation about what it meant to be assimilated and how that still affects them. And that was a really good scene. And I think that was a great way to connect those two characters that had never been on screen together, is to be like, hey, like we can relate what it's like to have our humanity taken. And she asks him, like, do you still struggle with this? And he's like, of course I do. That was great. Scenes like that, they needed more of that stuff before they went back to these ridiculous plot points like in the last episode with a literal handheld Deus Ex Machina. It looks like the ocarina from fucking Zelda or something.
At least it wasn't a tribble this time.
It's literally powered by imagination. I was like, "Oh my
Mhm.
god, are you kidding
Mhm.
me?" It can do anything. It's a sonic screwdriver. It's literally just it's a we can't figure out how to solve the plot. We got this little device. Just imagine what you want it to do, and it can.
Yep.
That was such a cop out. That was such a weak way to solve it, especially when it was juxtaposed against Picard finally being useful. Whereas in the series, he's been so they just wrote him to be so useless and just shit on the entire series. He finally gets his scene where he's able to have like a speech. That's Picard. I'm talking to these people. I'm going to solve this with diplomacy, and then have that juxtaposed with that goofy scientist chick. Using the Deus Ex Machina like to put her goofy face like we can multiply the ships times 20. It's the Picard maneuver. Uh, you know, just you you couldn't have wrote something better. Like you were that close, but we got to solve it with this like magical device from the synths that can also do Vulcan mind melds now. Like what? Uh, yeah, I just need more. You just want some more of that like good juicy like Picard shit. And I guess it's a criticism that's been around since the Next Generation movies. They said even in the movies, Jean Luc wasn't exactly the same character as he was in the show. He's more action, figure, especially in First Contact. He's like shooting people and
But at least in First Contact, they made a point of acknowledging that and pointing it out and making it integral to the plot. By the time you get to
yes,
Nemesis, it's like, yes,
makes no,
nope,
he's
we're big damn heroes.
we got a doom buggy.
Yep.
That's actually one thing I liked about Picard is Picard has flashbacks to um First Contact. They actually have little clips of it and stuff, and
Hmm.
to his assimilation from the old series and stuff. I like how they kind of use that to reconcile the two, the series Picard and the movie Picard. That's one good thing they did in the show is they reconcile the fact that sometimes it just makes him crazy. Sometimes he's angry. So that was great. That was something that this show did right. But they really need to like give us something that isn't so ambiguous as a unknown machine race, which was literally the exact same thing they did in Discovery season 2. And the fact that they didn't connect the two plots is so silly. But I hear now this is a spoiler that Picard is actually going to be in Discovery season 3. So I think they are going to connect these two plot points, but
I mean, they both are about AI. There is
Yep.
time travel.
Yep.
Totally don't see a reason why not. Um, I think the one thing that I would also hope for is I feel like the problem Picard had is that you really only had a few likable characters other than the main character, and you didn't see them for very long. Like Hugh gets killed like almost right away. The endearing Legolas Romulan running around.
what a
Elnor,
useless
yes.
character.
Yes,
Useless character, just totally
yes,
useless.
and you only see, but he's like somewhat likable compared to Dr. Wobbly Chin, who just like cries all
Oh
the time,
god.
assassinates her lover, and then like we all forget about it apparently.
That was a huge
Um,
problem for me. Yeah, everyone's like, "Oh, well, she
She
murdered that guy. She's still
she
part of the
may or
crew."
may not have been mind controlled. We're not sure.
well,
Maybe
and then we have
still.
like drug addict Rafi, who like who's a conspiracy theorist who's proven right, but like that doesn't
As
seem
they
to like
always are, yes.
but that doesn't seem to like change her character at all, like who she is at all. That doesn't seem to even like really resonate with her the way you think it will. Like
No,
these
because yeah,
characters are not, you get Riker and Troy who are pretty warm, but we don't get very much screen time with them either. And like you said, Kevin, they spend a lot of time just shitting on Picard. And so I really hope that and I think Discovery suffers from this a little bit too, is um I'm hoping that in the second season they give us a chance to really like a little bit more about these people that they've saddled us with in the series.
Yes, yes. Give us some fleshed out characters, because I challenge you to name any character on the bridge of the Discovery that isn't Tilly or Saru. Do you know any of those people's names? Like, who are they? I guess that's something that was inherent from the original series. Like, there was always these nameless ensigns and stuff, but we are in 2020 now, guys. We can do better, I think. Hmm,
we have
I don't
to.
know.
Yes, it's the future at stake. But yes, and yeah, for my part, I'm hoping that they just back a truckload of money up Peter David's driveway and give him control of all of this, taking it away from its current
Oh
owners. And
no, no. If they're gonna hand over this series to someone, they need to be handing that shit over to Seth MacFarlane.
Oh yeah, that's
Like,
what I've been
let's give
saying. Yeah.
Seth MacFarlane give him the Star Trek reins and
Hmm.
let him make, because like if you watch the Orville, it is basically like they just
It's next
made
gen.
a series about the same era of TNG, but it's a different ship.
the hell of it is like yeah, and that's of course why they're probably not going to do it because Fox has already given him all the money and he's not going anywhere.
If
Uh,
CBS knew what was good for him, he would to get that in a heartbeat. Like the very first episode of Orville, he's standing, being the captain.
yep.
He's standing in the office and he says to the admiral, like, ever since I was a kid, I've wanted to be on an exploratory vessel. And I believe in that moment that is MacFarlane actually saying that about himself. That is not a line. And the entire series, you can tell you are just watching this guy live out as close as he can to the fantasy of actually being on the NCC 1701D. You know what I mean? Like as
Yep.
Yep.
close as he can make it, and it's such a beautiful love note. And it's very reminiscent in a way that, as much as I love Discovery and I hope to love Picard by the time they have a second season, it is that they do not even attempt to come to that same type of emotional tenor.
And the series is better for it. Yes.
So although Dave, you say nobody gets to be in charge of what is Star Trek except for CBS and those who own Paramount and those who own the franchise, I
Viacom.
would
Yeah.
argue that if I ran the if I ran the farm, the Orville would be part of Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
It is
And yeah,
a
that's a separate discussion.
worthy part in that universe.
Indeed. And I'd entirely agree with that. Yes. Or one of it could be, yeah, easily passed for yeah, one of those mirror universes that occasionally people ships fall into, except not one of the evil ones, one of the better ones, one of the more optimistic ones. Earth 26 or whatever. Yeah. The one where the golden age never ended and there are still, ships on 5-year missions.
Yeah, no, I would totally love that. I wish they would. Maybe they'll get their head out of their ass sometime in the next 20 years. We'll see what Seth can do. And he won't have lost his marbles by then. But yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I
But
would also like to see from the Star Trek universe um a series that is told completely from the perspective of an alien race or another part of the universe that's not just the Federation. Like, give me a show that's just about the Klingons, like serving on a Klingon vessel, the missions of the Klingons. Like, I would love that.
Well, they're
yep,
gonna do that Section 31 show, right? Is that what they said?
of course,
Which
because
I think
yeah,
is a terrible idea. I think it's so I think Michelle Yao, whatever, is a
yo,
great actress. in other stuff, but in Discovery, she just seems like someone's drunk mom that like showed up at a high school party. She's trying constantly trying to be all sexy and shit, and it's just like, ugh. And it's just so not subtle. Like, Section 31's supposed to be like behind the scenes and shit, not wearing like a literal black badge. It's like, by the way, we're the secret agents,
See,
guys.
the black badge thing is not is bad enough, but the fact that they walk around half the time in bondage gear only further makes me think that somebody on that writing team has some serious kinks they're working out in these shows.
Or the production team, right? Because that's the costume department. Yeah.
I was talking to my friend about this, and it's like the incest Romulan sister on Picard is like she's pulled from the exact same fucking bag. It's like I'm like I got the black leather bondage gear, and I'm super like I'm standing like 2 inches from your face, and I'm always kind of like I don't know if I'm talking down to you or if I'm hitting on you. Like both of them do that. Like I'm just like oh god, like it's so not subtle. It's like yes, we get it. You're evil, and it's just also bizarre that like the Federation or Starfleet is gonna give fucking the reins to their secret black ops operation to like this evil murderous empress from the mirror universe and the milk toast totally boring love interest for Burnham. They're like, yeah, and you're part of it now too, and you were a secret Klingon sleeper agent a minute ago, but sure. Like, what does it take to get into Section 31? Like, they have like a fucking job booth at the county fair. Like, yeah, you're emotionally unstable. Okay, fine. Sign up. Yeah, if you can beat us at tic tac toe, you're in. Like, that's what it takes to get into Section 31. Apparently, like, what? Like, you think they'd want their brightest and their best and their most, people that aren't outrightly evil. Just like, yeah, I'm evil. You can tell because I'm wearing a fucking skin tight cat suit.
Yes, yeah, I'm wearing a skin tight catsuit and sunglasses that are far too angular. But hell, we know what Section 31's recruitment process is. They seem to like gaslighting and psychologically torturing people until maybe they figure out that they're trapped in a giant holographic simulation, because that's not a good way to inspire paranoia and existential crises. We certainly haven't seen anyone go through that before. And then they're like, yeah, let me pitch it to you. You get to be the Federation secret police. We've been here the whole time, running everything. We took away the Klingons' forehead ridges for about 20 years. We, made whatever the fuck they're doing on Discovery. And yeah, and we've been,
I will say
coordinating
this
the war
about
with the Dominion.
Picard. I will say this about Picard is that at least it's not the Enterprise.
God, yes, yes, that's right. And that's also kind of what I say. At least it's not into darkness. And that's yeah, it's a bit sad that our bars have been lowered so well, but like I said, we turn and face our problems around here, and yeah, by that standard, yeah, pretty good. Room for improvement, but still pretty good.
And no first season is flawless, so we'll give it that. We'll give it
Especially
a,
not in Star Trek history. Jesus Christ.
yeah, we'll give it a mulligan because Star Trek Next Generation didn't get really really fucking good till around season 3. So we'll see what happens.
And even the subpar first season of a Star Trek is still Star Trek.
Yep,
It's still better than no Star Trek. So,
totally.
Yes, we yeah,
yes.
we will thankfully never have to deal with the way things are going. We'll never have to face another 5-year dark period again. And honestly, I'm just glad that they're continuing these in series, which Star Trek is much better built for than in films, which, yeah, were hit or miss even in the golden age. Though, actually, Rachel, like when after the first episode came out, we were having lunch, and you said you'd watch Nemesis again for the first time in a long time. And I said my Wrath of Khan line, and then you said to me, OMG, does this make Picard search for Spock? That struck me at the time as pretty good analysis, but would you still say it holds true now that we have a whole show?
You know, it is kind of this version of Search for Spock because they spend the entire season basically getting their forces together, their scrappy band together in search for ultimately what is data. Um, it doesn't end in quite the same way where they get Spock himself back, but they have now the synths back, and the synths are nominally all created from data.
All
So
his
yeah,
children, right? His Katra, his living
exactly.
spirit.
So
Yeah.
this is kind of like the Search for Spock, except if at the end of Search for Spock they just left Spock down on the planet. They were like, "Just kidding. We went through all this effort to bring you back, and yeah, see you later. Goodbye, Spock. You're actually still dead. Just kidding."
Or if they'd gone to or if they'd failed to get him off of Genesis and then gone to Vulcan, and his mom would have been like, "Oh, actually, during that gap between like the end of the series and the first movie, yeah, Spock had a bunch of kids. Here
No,
they
no, no,
are."
no. It would have been more like if he was shot down to the Genesis planet and they went down there and there was a whole race of Spockites. Like there was like a whole bunch of people and they all like looked exactly like Spock and sort of kind of acted like him.
Those microbes kept
They're just
evolving.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like they made use of like his body and formed like a whole new race. Yeah, but it
They were
is it
sort of
is
like,
like
yeah. Have you ever seen this little animation called House of Cosby's?
Yep.
It'd be kind of
no.
like that. It's like there's a bunch of Spocks, but they're not quite right. Of failed Spock clones. Yeah, I'd like to see them do that next. We can get that guy from Discovery Season 2, Hipster Spock. He might be game for that. Just kidding. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't
I
do
was
that,
gonna say,
Kurtzman.
nope, sorry, you said it,
Uh,
and you're gonna lay the heaven it into existence now.
Oh God, I take it back. I take it back.
Too late. It's out there in the air, even if you're not tuned into it.
All right, I think I've said everything I want to say about Picard. I'm sure there's something else, but I can't remember. But yeah, that was it. That's my two
Rach,
cents.
Yeah, I
Rach,
think it's good. I think we covered a lot.
yes, we did. And to all of you out there in Radioland, we'll see you out there. Stay safe. Well, not sober, but yes, stay indoors. God damn it.